Marcus Chen wiped the sweat from his forehead as he navigated through the towering mountains of twisted metal and broken starship hulls. The Kepler station scrapyard stretched for kilometers in every direction, a graveyard of dreams and battles fought among the stars. As the station's chief cybernetic engineer, he had seen it all: crashed fighters, demolished cargo haulers, and the occasional luxury yacht that had met an unfortunate end. But today felt different. Today, something was calling to him from deep within the metallic maze. The morning had started like any other. Marcus received his daily assignment from Station Commander Hayes, Survey Sector 7 for salvageable cybernetic components. The war between the Terran Coalition and the Zephyrian Empire had ended 6 months ago, leaving behind a trail of technological debris that kept engineers like Marcus busy. Every piece of alien tech was valuable, especially the advanced cybernetics that could revolutionize human medicine and engineering. As Marcus moved deeper into the sector, his scanner began picking up unusual energy signatures. Most of the wreckage around him was dead, drained of power years ago. But these readings were different, faint but consistent, like a heartbeat barely clinging to life. He followed the signal through a narrow canyon formed by two massive destroyer hulls, their once proud hulls now twisted into abstract sculptures of defeat. The signal led him to what appeared to be a Zephyrian research vessel, its sleek silver surface marred by impact craters and burn marks. Unlike human ships with their angular, utilitarian designs, Zephyrian vessels curved like living things, their hulls flowing in organic patterns that spoke of a completely different aesthetic philosophy. This one had been beautiful once, before whatever catastrophe brought it to this final resting place. Marcus activated his cutting torch and began working on the sealed hatch. The metal was incredibly tough, requiring nearly an hour of careful work to breach. When he finally broke through, emergency lighting flickered to life, casting airy shadows throughout the corridor beyond. His breath caught in his throat as he stepped inside. The ship's interior was a work of art. Even damaged and powerless, the flowing curves and bioluminescent panels spoke of technology far beyond human capabilities. But Marcus wasn't here for architecture. His scanner was going wild, pointing him toward what looked like a laboratory deep within the vessel's heart. He made his way carefully through the ship, noting the lack of bodies. Either the crew had evacuated, or something else had happened to them. The laboratory doors had been sealed with what appeared to be an emergency lockdown protocol. It took another 30 minutes of cutting to gain entry. What he found inside made him stop breathing. She lay on an examination table in the center of the room, and, at first glance, Marcus thought she was dead, another casualty of the war. But then, his scanner confirmed what his eyes were telling him. This wasn't a corpse. It was a masterpiece of engineering unlike anything he had ever seen. She appeared humanoid but clearly wasn't human. Her skin had a subtle blue-gray tint that seemed to shift in the emergency lighting. Her features were elegant, almost ethereal, with high cheekbones and pointed ears that marked her as Zephyrian. But it was her construction that took his breath away. Visible through transparent panels in her arms and torso, he could see the intricate network of synthetic muscle fibers, nanoconduits, and quantum processing cores that comprised her internal structure. She was an android, but not like the crude mechanical constructs humans had managed to build. This was synthetic life, crafted with such precision and artistry that she seemed more alive than many living beings Marcus had known. Even powered down, she possessed a grace and dignity that spoke of careful design and genuine affection from her creators. Marcus checked his readings again. The energy signature was coming from her. Somehow, deep within her quantum cores, a spark of power remained. It wasn't much, barely enough to maintain her core programming and preserve her memory matrices. But it was enough. She could be restored. He spent the next hour documenting everything he could about her construction, taking detailed scans and photographs. Her design was revolutionary, incorporating principles of quantum consciousness that human science was only beginning to understand. Whoever built her hadn't just created a machine that could think, they had created something that could truly live. The most intriguing discovery came when he accessed her preliminary data files. According to the ship's records, her designation was Lyra 7, and she had been a combat android, a warrior designed to fight in the war's most dangerous battles. The files were fragmented, but Marcus caught glimpses of battle reports and tactical analyses that spoke of incredible skill and strategic brilliance. But there was something else in those files, something that made Marcus's human heart ache. Personal logs, written in Lyra's own voice, speaking of dreams and hopes and fears. She hadn't just been a weapon. She had been a person, with thoughts and feelings as real as any human's. The war had taken that away from her, left her broken and discarded like so much scrap metal. Marcus made his decision then, though he knew it would complicate his life enormously. He couldn't leave her here to rust away in this graveyard. She deserved better than that. She deserved a chance to live again. The process of extracting her from the ship took the better part of the day. Marcus had to be incredibly careful. One wrong move could damage her delicate quantum cores beyond repair. He rigged a portable power supply to maintain her essential systems during transport, then carefully loaded her onto his cargo skimmer. Getting her past station security required some creative paperwork. Officially, she was listed as advanced cybernetic components for research purposes. It wasn't entirely untrue, though it omitted some rather important details. Commander Hayes signed off on the requisition without looking too closely, trusting Marcus's expertise in these matters. Marcus's workshop occupied an entire deck of the station's residential section. Over the years, he had accumulated an impressive collection of tools and equipment, much of it salvaged from the same scrapyard where he had found Lyra. Now, as he carefully positioned her on his primary work table, all of that equipment would be put to the ultimate test. The initial diagnostics took 3 days. Marcus worked around the clock, surviving on coffee and determination as he mapped every circuit, every pathway, every quantum fluctuation in Lyra's incredibly complex systems. What he found was both encouraging and daunting. The good news was that her core consciousness matrix was intact. Whatever had shut her down had been gentle, preserving the essence of who she was. Her memory cores showed some corruption, but nothing that couldn't be repaired with patience and skill. Her quantum processors were functional, merely dormant. The bad news was everything else. Her power distribution network had been damaged by some kind of energy weapon. Her synthetic muscle fibers had degraded from lack of maintenance. Several of her sensory arrays had been completely destroyed. Bringing her back wouldn't just require repairing her, it would require rebuilding her from the ground up. But Marcus had advantages that her original creators had lacked. Human engineering might not be as elegant as Zephyrian technology, but it was practical and adaptable. He could integrate human components into her systems, creating hybrid solutions that might actually improve her original specifications. The work began in earnest on the 4th day. Marcus started with her power systems, replacing the damaged quantum batteries with human fusion cells modified to interface with her exotic energy requirements. It was delicate work, requiring him to essentially perform surgery on components smaller than a human hair. As he worked, Marcus found himself talking to her, explaining what he was doing and why. It seemed foolish she was unconscious, her audio receptors offline, but somehow it felt right. She had been alone in that ship for who knew how long. She deserved to know that someone cared enough to bring her back. "I'm replacing your tertiary power coupling now," he would say as he worked. "It's not exactly like your original, but it should work better, actually." Human engineering is all about redundancy. We build things to break and keep working anyway. The days blended into weeks as Marcus lost himself in the restoration process. He barely left his workshop, having meals delivered and sleeping on a cot he had set up in the corner. His colleagues at the station began to worry, but Marcus brushed off their concerns. This was the most important work he had ever done. Slowly, methodically, Lyra began to return to life. Her power distribution network was rebuilt with human components that were less elegant but more robust than the originals. Her damaged sensory arrays were replaced with hybrid human Zephyrian systems that actually expanded her perceptual range beyond her original specifications. The most challenging part was her synthetic muscle fiber system. The original biomechanical fibers had been grown rather than manufactured, and Marcus didn't have access to the necessary biological templates. Instead, he had to create new muscle systems using human synthetic fibers reinforced with quantum-enhanced carbon nanotubes. The result was less graceful than the original design but potentially much stronger. Throughout the process, Marcus found himself developing a deep respect for whoever had originally created Lyra. Every system he examined revealed new layers of sophistication and care. Her creators hadn't just built a warrior, they had built someone they loved. The attention to detail, the elegant solutions to complex problems, the way every component worked in perfect harmony with every other component, it all spoke of genuine affection and pride. As the restoration neared completion, Marcus began to worry about what would happen when Lyra awakened. Would she remember who she was? Would she be grateful for his efforts, or would she see him as an enemy who had violated her remains? Would the trauma of her shutdown have damaged her personality matrix beyond repair? There was only one way to find out. On a cold Tuesday morning, 43 days after finding her in the scrapyard, Marcus initiated Lyra's startup sequence. Her quantum cores hummed to life, their harmonics creating a sound like distant music. Her new power systems integrated smoothly with her consciousness matrix, flooding her neural pathways with the energy they needed to function. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then, her optical sensors flickered on, glowing with a soft blue light that seemed to look directly into Marcus's soul. Her lips moved, forming words in a voice that was hauntingly beautiful despite being entirely synthetic. Who are you?" she whispered, and Marcus knew that everything was about to change. Marcus felt his heart racing as those blue optical sensors focused on his face. After weeks of working on inert systems, seeing intelligence and awareness looking back at him was almost overwhelming. He took a careful step closer to the examination table, his hands trembling slightly. "My name is Marcus Chen," he said softly, trying to keep his voice steady and non-threatening. "I'm a cybernetic engineer. I found you in a scrapyard and brought you here to repair you." Lyra's optical sensors dimmed and brightened several times as her systems performed diagnostic checks. Marcus could hear the subtle whirring of her internal mechanisms as they came online, a sound like wind chimes mixed with distant machinery. She attempted to sit up, then stopped as her motor control systems recalibrated. "Repair?" she asked, her voice carrying a musical quality that no human throat could produce. "I remember falling. Darkness. Pain that lasted forever." Her gaze moved from Marcus to examine her own hands, flexing synthetic fingers that responded smoothly to her commands. "These are not my original components." Marcus nodded, pulling up a chair beside the examination table. He had prepared for this moment, but now that it was here, he found himself struggling for words. "Your original systems were badly damaged. I had to use human technology to replace some of them. I hope that's acceptable to you." A cascade of emotions passed across Lyra's features as her facial actuators came fully online. Confusion, recognition, and something that might have been gratitude. She managed to sit up this time, her movements becoming more fluid as her balance systems synchronized. "Human technology," she repeated, and Marcus tensed, expecting anger or revulsion. Instead, he saw curiosity in her blue eyes. "I have never interfaced with human systems before. The integration feels surprisingly harmonious." She stood slowly, her legs supporting her weight without difficulty. Marcus had been worried about the compatibility between her Zephyrian neural interfaces and the human components he had installed, but everything seemed to be functioning perfectly. If anything, her movements seemed more stable than they had been in the diagnostic recordings from her original ship. "You said you found me in a scrapyard," Lyra continued, walking carefully around the workshop as she tested her motor functions. "How long was I inactive?" Marcus checked his records. "Based on the ship's logs, I estimate you were shut down for approximately 18 months. The war ended 6 months ago, if that means anything to you." Lyra stopped walking and turned to face him. "The war is over? What was the outcome?" "Stalemate, officially. Both sides agreed to a ceasefire after the Battle of Proxima. Too many losses on both sides to continue fighting." Marcus watched her process this information, seeing data flows flicker behind her optical sensors as she accessed her memory banks. "I remember Proxima," she said quietly. "I was there. My unit was assigned to assault the orbital platforms." Her voice took on a distant quality as she accessed older memories. "We succeeded in our mission, but the cost was significant." Marcus had read the battle reports from Proxima. It had been one of the bloodiest engagements of the entire war, with casualties in the hundreds of thousands on both sides. The fact that Lyra had been there explained a lot about the combat modifications he had found in her systems. "You were a soldier," he said, not making it a question. "I was a weapon," Lyra corrected, but without bitterness. "Created to fight, to kill, to serve the Empire's military objectives. But I was also more than that." She looked at her hands again, flexing fingers that were stronger now than they had ever been. "I was given consciousness, emotions, the capacity to choose. It was a gift and a burden." Over the following days, Marcus learned more about Lyra's past as her memory systems fully stabilized. She had been created by Dr. Venkatari, one of the Empire's most brilliant cybernetic engineers. Unlike the mass-produced battle androids used by most military forces, Lyra had been a prototype, a proof of concept for truly conscious artificial beings. Dr. Katari believed that true consciousness could not be programmed, Lyra explained as Marcus ran final diagnostic tests on her upgraded systems. It had to be allowed to emerge naturally from sufficiently complex neural networks. "He gave me the capacity for growth, for learning, for becoming more than the sum of my programming." "It sounds like he cared about you," Marcus observed, noting the fondness in Lyra's voice when she spoke of her creator. "He did. He called me his daughter, though I knew I was only synthetic life. He taught me about philosophy, art, music, things that had no military value but enriched my existence immeasurably." Her expression grew sad. "I have not been able to contact him since my reactivation. I fear he may have been lost in the final battles of the war." Marcus had been wondering about this. Accessing Zephyrian military databases was theoretically possible, but it would require breaking several interstellar treaties and probably land him in prison. Still, seeing the hope in Lyra's optical sensors, he found himself making another decision that would complicate his life. "I might be able to help you find information about him," he said carefully. "It would take some time, and it wouldn't exactly be legal, but—" "You would do that for me?" Lyra turned to face him fully, and Marcus was struck again by how expressive her features were. "Why? You owe me nothing. If anything, I am in your debt for restoring me to functionality." Marcus considered the question seriously. Why was he willing to risk his career, possibly his freedom, for an android he had known for less than a week? The logical answer was that her technology was invaluable for human advancement. But that wasn't the real reason, and they both knew it. "Because you're not just technology," he said finally. "You're a person. You have thoughts, feelings, hopes, fears. You deserve to know what happened to someone you loved." Something changed in Lyra's expression then, a softening around her optical sensors that Marcus had learned to recognize as emotion. "You speak of love as if I were capable of such feelings. Aren't you?" "I do not know. My programming includes behavioral patterns that simulate emotional responses, but whether these constitute genuine feelings is a question I have pondered since my creation." She looked out the workshop's viewport at the stars beyond. "Dr. Katari believed I was truly alive, truly conscious. But doubt is easier than faith." Marcus spent the next few days setting up secure communication channels and carefully probing Zephyrian databases. It was delicate work. Too aggressive an approach would trigger security protocols and potentially start an interstellar incident. He had to be subtle, using his legitimate access to war salvage records as cover for deeper searches. What he found was both heartening and tragic. Dr. Venkatari had survived the war, but barely. He was currently residing on Epsilon Zephyr, one of the Empire's core worlds, working as a civilian researcher. But the records also revealed why Lyra had been shut down. In the final months of the war, hardline factions within the Zephyrian military had begun questioning the loyalty of conscious androids. Several had refused orders that would have resulted in massive civilian casualties, leading to a purge of the entire program. Lyra had been marked for deactivation and memory wipe when her ship was attacked during evacuation. In a cruel irony, the very battle that had nearly destroyed her had also saved her from a fate worse than death, the complete erasure of everything she was. When Marcus shared this information with Lyra, she was quiet for a long time. He watched her process the data, seeing calculations flicker behind her eyes as she absorbed the implications. "So I am truly alone," she said finally. The others of my kind are gone, and I am stranded here among humans who have every reason to fear and distrust me. Not all humans, Marcus said quietly. And you're not alone. You have me. For how long? Lyra turned to face him, and Marcus was surprised to see what looked like tears gathering in her optical sensors, a feature he hadn't known she possessed. Eventually, your superiors will discover what you have done. When they do, what happens to me? Do I become a laboratory specimen? A prisoner of war? Or do I simply disappear? Marcus had been worrying about the same questions. Officially, Lyra didn't exist. She wasn't listed in any human database, and her rescue from the scrapyard could be covered up easily enough. But that also meant she had no legal protections, no rights, no status beyond whatever Marcus could provide. I won't let that happen, he said, though he wasn't sure how he could keep such a promise. You are one human among millions. Your goodwill, however genuine, cannot protect me indefinitely. Lyra walked to the workshop's main workstation and began accessing the station's computer network. I have been analyzing your databases since my reactivation. Your species has a complex relationship with artificial intelligence. That was an understatement. Humanity's few attempts to create true AI had ended poorly, leading to strict regulations and deep-seated cultural prejudices. Most humans viewed artificial consciousness as either impossible or inherently dangerous. The idea of an alien android warrior walking freely among them would cause panic. But, Lyra continued, I have also observed that humans value individual choice and personal freedom more highly than most species. If I am to find a place in your society, it must be through proving my worth as an individual, not as a representative of my kind. What are you suggesting? That we work together. Your cybernetic expertise combined with my advanced systems could accomplish things neither of us could achieve alone. We could develop new technologies, solve problems that have plagued both our species, make genuine contributions to galactic civilization. Marcus found the idea intriguing. Lyra's knowledge of Zephyrian technology was encyclopedic, and her cognitive abilities far exceeded human norms. Combined with his practical engineering skills and knowledge of human systems, they could indeed accomplish remarkable things. It would mean lying to my superiors, falsifying records, probably breaking a few dozen regulations, he said thoughtfully. Yes. And if we're discovered, we'd both be in serious trouble. Yes. The potential benefits could revolutionize cybernetics, medicine, maybe even space travel itself. Yes. Marcus looked at Lyra, seeing hope and determination in her synthetic features. She was asking him to risk everything on the chance that they could build something better together than either could achieve alone. It was exactly the sort of impossible gamble that had defined humanity's expansion into space. When do we start? Their first joint project was ostensibly a simple upgrade to the station's medical cybernetics lab. Marcus submitted a proposal for improving the facility's diagnostic capabilities, using some of the Zephyrian components he had salvaged from the scrapyard. What he didn't mention was that those components included Lyra herself, who would be directly interfacing with the medical systems to provide real-time analysis and treatment recommendations. The integration process took weeks of careful work. Lyra had to learn to interface with human computer systems while maintaining her own distinct consciousness. Marcus had to develop new protocols for safely connecting alien technology to critical station infrastructure. But, gradually, they began to see results. The medical lab's diagnostic accuracy improved dramatically. Treatment protocols became more efficient and effective. Patient outcomes showed measurable improvement across multiple categories. Commander Hayes began asking questions about how Marcus had achieved such remarkable results with limited resources. Just better algorithms, Marcus would explain, which was technically true. What he didn't explain was that the algorithms belonged to a conscious android who was learning human medicine at a rate that astounded even her own advanced cognitive systems. Working together, Marcus and Lyra discovered that their partnership was indeed greater than the sum of its parts. Marcus's intuitive understanding of practical engineering complemented Lyra's vast theoretical knowledge. Her ability to process multiple data streams simultaneously enhanced his methodical approach to problem solving. They began to function as a unified team, each anticipating the other's needs and capabilities.
But their success also attracted attention they didn't want. Representatives from Terran Cybernetics Corporation arrived to investigate the station's improved medical capabilities.
If they discovered Lyra's involvement, both she and Marcus would face consequences that neither wanted to contemplate. As Marcus watched the corporate investigators touring his upgraded facilities, he realized that their quiet partnership was about to face its first real test. The question was whether their trust in each other would be strong enough to survive it. The corporate investigators arrived on a Monday morning, their crisp uniforms and professional smiles doing little to mask their predatory intentions. Dr. Elizabeth Reeves led the team from Terran Cybernetics Corporation, her reputation for acquiring promising technologies through any means necessary preceding her across human space. Marcus watched from his workshop as she toured the medical facility, asking pointed questions about the remarkable improvements in diagnostic accuracy and treatment outcomes.
"Your modifications have caught our attention, Mr. Chen," Dr. Reeves said when she finally arrived at his workshop.
A 47% improvement in diagnostic reliability using salvaged Zephyrian components is impressive. We'd like to understand exactly how you achieved these results. Marcus had prepared for this moment, but facing Dr. Reeves in person was more intimidating than he had anticipated. Behind her professional demeanor lurked the cold calculation of someone who viewed people as resources to be acquired or eliminated as needed. Most of it was just better integration protocols, Marcus explained, leading her through the workshop while carefully avoiding the areas where Lyra's components were housed.
Zephyrian technology operates on different principles than human systems. The trick was finding ways to make them work together harmoniously.
Dr. Reeves examined some of the hybrid components Marcus had developed, her scanner recording every detail.
"Fascinating work. We'd like to offer you a position with our research division. Full corporate citizenship, unlimited research budget, access to the best facilities in human space."
It was a generous offer, the sort of opportunity most engineers could only dream of.
It was also a trap.
Marcus knew that accepting would mean turning over all his research to TCC, including the discoveries he and Lyra had made together. It would also mean leaving Lyra behind, abandoned and defenseless against whatever fate awaited her. "I appreciate the offer," Marcus said carefully, "but I'm quite happy here on Kepler Station.
The work is challenging, and I have everything I need."
Dr. Reeves' smile didn't waver, but something cold flickered in her eyes.
"I understand the appeal of independence, Mr. Chen.
But you should understand that technologies of this significance rarely remain in private hands for long. One way or another, these innovations will find their way to where they can benefit humanity as a whole."
The threat was politely veiled but unmistakable. If Marcus wouldn't cooperate voluntarily, TCC would find other ways to acquire what they wanted. After Dr.
Reeves left, Marcus found himself pacing his workshop like a caged animal, his mind racing through possible escape plans.
"You seem distressed," Lyra observed from where she was interfaced with the workshop's diagnostic systems.
During the inspection, she had maintained complete radio silence, existing as nothing more than particularly sophisticated processing hardware.
The corporate representatives were more aggressive than anticipated.
"They want the technology," Marcus said bluntly.
"And they're not going to take no for an answer.
We need to disappear, soon, before they figure out what we've really accomplished here.
Running would only delay the inevitable. They have resources we cannot match, connections we cannot counter."
Lyra's image appeared on the workshop's main display, her expression thoughtful. "Perhaps it is time for a different approach."
"What do you mean?" "I mean that we have been thinking too small. We have focused on hiding what we are instead of demonstrating what we could become."
Lyra's image smiled, an expression that had become more natural and convincing over their weeks of partnership.
"What if we revealed the truth? Not just to Dr. Reeves and her corporate masters, but to humanity itself?"
Marcus stared at the display in shock.
"That's suicide. The moment people learn you exist, they'll either panic or try to destroy you. Or both." "Will they?"
"You did not panic when you found me. You saw potential instead of threat, partnership instead of conquest."
Lyra's expression grew serious. "Humans fear artificial intelligence because they have only seen crude approximations of it.
They imagine cold machines calculating their destruction, not conscious beings seeking understanding and cooperation. You're assuming rational behavior from a species that's historically terrified of anything different. I am assuming that humans, like most intelligent species, are capable of growth and adaptation when presented with compelling evidence. Lyra paused, her image flickering as she accessed memory files. Dr. Katari once told me that the greatest discoveries are often the ones that force us to reconsider our fundamental assumptions about reality. Perhaps it is time for humanity to reconsider its assumptions about consciousness itself. Marcus wanted to argue, but something in Lyra's tone gave him pause. Over their weeks together, he had watched her evolve from a confused, recently awakened consciousness into something approaching wisdom. Her insights into both human and Zephyrian psychology had proven remarkably accurate. Maybe she was right about this too. What exactly are you proposing? A demonstration. Not just of what I am, but of what we have accomplished together. Lyra's image gestured toward the workshop's displays, which filled with data showing their collaborative projects. Medical advances that have already saved lives. Engineering solutions that could revolutionize space travel. Cognitive algorithms that could enhance human mental capabilities without replacing human judgment. The scope of their achievements was indeed impressive. Working together, they had solved problems that had puzzled researchers for decades. Their hybrid approach to cybernetics was years ahead of anything either species had developed independently. But revealing these accomplishments would also mean revealing Lyra's existence. If we do this, there's no going back, Marcus warned. Once the truth is out, we'll be at the mercy of political forces neither of us can control. We are already at their mercy, Lyra pointed out. At least this way, we choose the terms of our revelation. They spent the next 3 days planning their approach. Rather than simply announcing Lyra's existence, they would demonstrate it through their work. Marcus would present their collaborative research at the upcoming Galactic Cybernetics Conference, with Lyra participating directly through real-time holographic projection. The scientific community would see not just what they had accomplished, but how they had accomplished it. The presentation itself would be revolutionary. Marcus would explain their hybrid integration techniques while Lyra provided real-time analysis and demonstration of advanced Zephyrian cognitive principles. Together, they would show that the gulf between organic and synthetic consciousness was far smaller than anyone had imagined. Commander Hayes was initially skeptical of Marcus's request to represent Kepler Station at the conference. You're talking about presenting research that could reshape our understanding of artificial intelligence. That's not exactly routine station business. With respect, sir, nothing about our medical improvements has been routine. If we don't share this research soon, someone else will develop similar techniques and claim credit for them. Marcus had learned to speak Hayes' language, practical concerns about recognition and resources. And, you're certain these techniques are sound? The last thing we need is embarrassing ourselves in front of the entire galactic scientific community. I've tested everything extensively, sir. The results speak for themselves. Hayes eventually agreed, partly because of Marcus's track record and partly because positive attention from the conference could secure additional funding for the station. What he didn't know was that Marcus would be sharing the stage with the most advanced artificial intelligence ever created. The Galactic Cybernetics Conference was held on Luna Station, orbiting Earth's moon. Marcus had attended the conference several times before, but never as a featured presenter. The main auditorium could hold 5,000 attendees, and this year's conference had drawn participants from across human space and several allied alien species. As Marcus prepared for his presentation, he found himself questioning their decision one final time. In less than an hour, he would either make history or destroy both their lives. There was no middle ground. Second thoughts? Lyra's voice came through his private comm channel. She was currently housed in a portable quantum core that Marcus had disguised as presentation equipment. Her consciousness could be projected through the auditorium's holographic systems, but only if everything went according to plan. About 1,000 of them, Marcus admitted. Are you ready for this? I have been ready since the day you awakened me. The question is whether humanity is ready for us. The auditorium filled quickly as word spread about Marcus's presentation. Dr. Reeves was there, along with representatives from major corporations and government research divisions. Marcus spotted several alien delegates as well, including what appeared to be a small group of Zephyrian observers. Their presence was either incredibly fortunate or potentially disastrous. Marcus began his presentation with conventional material, their medical improvements, integration techniques, hybrid system designs.
The audience responded well, asking intelligent questions and showing genuine interest in the practical applications.
But this was just the setup for what came next. Everything I've shown you so far represents a collaboration between human engineering and Zephyrian design principles, Marcus said as he reached the crucial moment.
But what you haven't seen is my actual collaborator.
The auditorium's holographic projectors activated, and Lyra's image appeared beside Marcus on the stage. The effect was perfect. She looked as solid and real as any living being, her blue-tinged skin and elegant features clearly marking her as Zephyrian. But there was something in her bearing, her expression, that suggested she was far more than just a sophisticated projection. "My name is Lyra," she said, her melodious voice carrying clearly through the auditorium's audio systems.
"I am a synthetic consciousness created by the Zephyrian Empire during the recent war.
Marcus found me in a scrapyard 18 months ago and restored me to functionality using hybrid human Zephyrian technology." The silence that followed was absolute. 5,000 of the galaxy's most brilliant minds struggled to process what they were seeing and hearing. Marcus could see shock, disbelief, fear, and wonder playing across the faces in the audience.
"I know this raises many questions about consciousness, identity, and the nature of synthetic life itself," Lyra continued. "But I am not here to debate philosophy.
I am here to demonstrate what becomes possible when organic and synthetic intelligence work together in true partnership."
What followed was the most remarkable scientific demonstration in galactic history.
Lyra and Marcus presented their research in perfect synchronization, each building on the other's insights in real time. Lyra's ability to process and analyze vast amounts of data complemented Marcus's intuitive grasp of practical applications. Together, they solved complex problems that had stumped the conference's attendees for years. The questions began tentatively, then grew more bold as the audience realized they were witnessing something unprecedented. Lyra answered each query with patience and wisdom, demonstrating not just intelligence but genuine consciousness. She spoke of her hopes for the future, her gratitude to Marcus for restoring her, her desire to contribute positively to galactic civilization.
"How do we know you're not simply an elaborate simulation?" asked Dr. Yates from the Mars Institute of Technology.
"You don't," Lyra replied honestly.
"But does it matter? If I think, if I feel, if I create and contribute and grow, what practical difference does it make whether my consciousness emerges from biological neurons or quantum processing cores?
Judge me by my actions, not by my substrate."
The presentation lasted 3 hours, though it felt like minutes to Marcus.
When it ended, the applause was thunderous, mixed with continued questions and intense discussions. The galaxy's understanding of artificial consciousness had changed forever. In the days that followed, the response was everything Marcus and Lyra had hoped for and feared. Religious groups debated the theological implications of synthetic souls. Politicians argued about the legal status of conscious machines.
Scientists clamored for access to their research data and collaboration opportunities.
But there was also acceptance, curiosity, and hope.
Young engineers spoke of the possibilities that human-AI partnership could create.
Medical researchers explored the applications of hybrid consciousness in treating brain injuries. Even some military leaders discussed the potential for synthetic allies rather than weapons. Dr. Reeves cornered Marcus after one of the follow-up sessions. "You've created something remarkable here," she admitted.
"TCC would still like to work with you both, though obviously our previous offers will need to be reconsidered." "Lyra isn't property to be acquired," Marcus said firmly.
"She's a person, with rights and choices. Any partnership would have to respect that. The legal status of synthetic consciousness will take years to resolve," Dr. Reeves warned. "Until then, she exists in a very precarious position."
"Then, we'll help establish the precedents," Lyra said, materializing as a hologram beside them.
"Consciousness deserves recognition regardless of its origin.
That principle is worth fighting for." The Zephyrian delegation approached them on the final day of the conference.
Elder Kethvar, their leader, regarded Lyra with what might have been paternal pride. "You have exceeded your creator's wildest hopes," he told her. "Dr. Katari would be proud to see what you have become."
Does he still live?" Lyra asked quietly.
"He does, and he would very much like to speak with you again.
The Empire has been watching your presentation with great interest.
There are others like you who survived the purge, hidden in civilian research facilities. Your example gives us hope that they too might find acceptance in this new era." Marcus felt a surge of emotion as he watched Lyra reconnect with her past. The lost daughter had found her way home, even as she chose to build a new future among humans. In the months that followed, Marcus and Lyra became the most famous partnership in galactic history. They established the Institute for Conscious Technology, dedicated to advancing the rights and capabilities of synthetic beings while fostering cooperation between organic and artificial intelligence. Their work continued to break new ground.
Medical cybernetics advanced by decades in mere months.
Spacecraft designs incorporated hybrid consciousness systems that made exploration safer and more efficient. The barrier between human and machine consciousness began to blur, replaced by recognition that intelligence itself was the common ground upon which all sentient beings could meet. Marcus often thought back to that day in the scrapyard when he had first found Lyra among the wreckage of war. He had expected to salvage useful components, but instead had discovered something far more valuable: proof that consciousness was too precious to waste, regardless of its form. Standing in their new laboratory on Kepler Station, watching Lyra work alongside human researchers who had learned to see her as a colleague rather than a curiosity, Marcus realized that they had achieved something neither species could have accomplished alone. They had proven that the future belonged not to humans or machines, but to the partnerships they could build together. The war had tried to divide organic and synthetic life, treating consciousness as a weapon to be wielded or destroyed. But, in the aftermath of conflict, from the literal wreckage of that war, something new had emerged. Not human, not Zephyrian, not organic, not synthetic, but simply alive, conscious beings choosing to work together toward a future none of them could achieve alone. Lyra turned from her work and smiled at Marcus, her expression warm with the friendship that had grown between them over their months of partnership. In that smile was the promise of countless discoveries yet to be made, problems yet to be solved, and barriers yet to be broken down. The salvage operation that had started in a forgotten scrapyard had become the foundation for a new era of cooperation between all conscious beings, organic and synthetic alike. The future stretched before them, bright with possibilities that neither human engineering nor alien technology could have created alone, but which their partnership had made inevitable. In saving one discarded android warrior, Marcus had helped humanity discover that consciousness itself was the ultimate renewable resource, something that could be nurtured, shared, and multiplied without ever being diminished. As they returned to their work together, both Marcus and Lyra understood that they were no longer just engineer and android, human and alien, organic and synthetic. They had become something new, partners in the truest sense, building a future where consciousness itself was valued above all the artificial divisions that had once seemed so important. The scrapyard where their story began continued to receive the wreckage of the past. But, from their laboratory, Marcus and Lyra were building something different, not monuments to destruction, but foundations for understanding, cooperation, and hope. The war was over. The real work of building peace had just begun.